Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, worshippers of all ages, I am SeaRaptor, and this is another edition of Scuttlebutt. Our replay this week is a game I played just this past Wednesday night in Tier 8 Premium American Cruiser Wichita, which should be releasing today. I'll talk more about the ship later in the video. Since I won't have time to put together a full review, I'll give you the bullet points a little farther in. So what's up this week in shooty boats? Well, by last week's standards, this week has been positively docile. With the upheaval of 8.0 and last week's bombshell announcement about possible major changes to at least two premium ships, Giulio Cesare and Le Terrible, things have, well, kind of settled down a little bit. Update 8.02 dropped earlier this week with more tweaks to AA values, and I think we're just about in a good place overall. In this Wichita game you're watching, for example, I get quite a few waves of carrier planes thrown my way, but the enemy carrier doesn't really get a whole lot out of them between my captain build of basic firing training and manual fire control combined with the defensive AA fire consumable. I'm not immune, but I am certainly not vulnerable to aerial attack. And I feel like that's a pretty good place to be. I saw fellow North American CC Little White Mouse sum it up this way earlier this week. To her, AA builds should really land in 4 possible categories, and I quote here. Number 1, the AA is so powerful that the aircraft are wiped out before the drop. Number 2, the CV can complete the first drop but takes severe casualties. Any planes that launch ordnance are wiped out before they can return to the carrier. Any surviving planes will be shot down if they attempt a second attack. Number 3, the CV can complete the first drop while taking damage. They can complete a second drop, but it will likely result in their taking their first losses. Or number 4, the AA is of no consequences and casualties are unlikely. Now, for most part, when we're talking about equal tiers, right now we seem to mostly be in kind of that 2 to 3 range, which is pretty healthy. CVs can be effective and sustain some losses. 1 and 4 are simply not good for overall balance. 1 is tilted too far in favor of the defender, while 4 is tilted too far in favor of the carrier captain. So I think we're nearly there. Some ships and builds will have to invest a fair amount of upgrades and skills to move up levels on this particular hierarchy, and some won't. To some extent, it's up to individual captains to decide if they want to invest in it or not. We're starting to see more of the fervor of the patch dying down, and while carriers are way more common than they used to be, they aren't 1 to 2 in every tier 8 or higher game like they were right after patch time. I think that's a result of AA being tuned such that surface ships aren't instant fodder anymore. You have to work and think about attack vectors and vulnerable targets, and there's still a lot of teams and randoms that are blobbing up for mutual AA protection. Teamwork! Holy crap, imagine that. We beat that topic to death for the past 6 weeks, I think. So what else is going on? The EU community team did a great QA with the head of game balance in the St. Petersburg office this past week, Sir Nelson. It's worth a watch to get a better understanding of how the devs think about certain topics and why certain decisions are being made. I'll put a link down below. You should check out this video for yourself. It's about 2 hours long. You might not want to sit through the whole thing, but there is some good info there, so hop around and watch some of it. There was some misinterpretation of one of the things that Nelson said during the video that led to kind of a partial meltdown of some folks who reached the conclusion that he didn't play the game on the live servers. As is depressingly typical on the internet, they reached this conclusion having done 0 research. If they had even bothered to do a cursory player search on any of the stat aggregator websites, they would have discovered his 5,700 plus battles, 65% win rate, and nearly 90,000 average damage on his home server in the RU region. Apparently he's a filthy battleship player, but a pretty good one. So sorry, fellas, you're going to have to find something else to screech about. Speaking of screeching, holy crap, I had no idea how bad it had gotten on the official Twitch and YouTube streams. I watched some of the chat scrolling by in both places late last week and earlier this week, and ugh, what a train wreck. There are apparently a lot of angry people out there with no idea how to present their feedback in a cohesive manner other than throwing a temper tantrum. All right, guys, so here it is. I'm going to do you a favor. This is it. This is the SeaRaptor patented method of providing meaningful feedback to your respective community teams so that it will actually end up in front of the developers. All right, here we go. Number 1, summarize your feedback, your complaint, whatever it is, into a clear, concise point. Bullet points are good if you can manage it, but keep it short. Don't use 17 or 20 sentences to rage about a topic when a simple 1-sentence summary of your concern will suffice. Number 2, Having stated your particular concern or complaint, back it up with something. This does not have to be hard evidence or stats, but that's useful if you have them. Remember, games are meant to be fun, so even a simple statement of, this doesn't feel fun to me, is acceptable as long as you're able to coherently explain why. I'll give you an example, right? Let's say you like playing destroyers, and right now the patch is not super kind to destroyers. So you might phrase it saying, guys, right now playing a destroyer in the current environment is not enjoyable because carriers are able to spot me too quickly at the start of a game. There, right? That's a nice, concise summary of your particular issue. And you may have more issues, but let's start with that one as an example, okay? Number 3, suggest a possible solution. This is the part that people almost always fall down on because it requires them to think around multiple sides of the issue. And it's far simpler to simply rant about your particular problem and not consider the overall impact your particular suggestion might have on the game. Keep in mind that suggestions like, quote, put it back the way it was, or remove, class X from the game are just not helpful, because the developers have already made a certain change for a specific reason, right? Carriers are in the game for a reason, to pick an example. If we carry through with the example that we used a minute ago, we might suggest that carriers have a penalty imposed on launching planes at the start of a match as a way of balancing the early spotting issue. Above everything else, guys, when you do these sorts of things, you have got to avoid personal attacks. You can't call the devs stupids or morons because it undermines your entire argument and makes it look like you have some kind of petty revenge agenda to push. It makes you sound unprofessional, okay? Your goal is to present the argument in such a way as if you were standing up in front of a large room full of people and you want to appear professional. Gentlemen, I have this particular concern. This is my complaint. This is my beef. Here's what I think would help solve my problem. Okay, so let's talk. Let's have a dialogue. Or here's my issue, and please go away and provide me with some thoughts on it later on, right? If you just stand up there and run around like a temper tantrum, like a 3-year-old, no one in the room is going to take you seriously, all right? It's the same thing. You care enough to post. That's good, but make it a post the community team will actually read and pass on, not one that they will simply automatically dismiss as the screechings of some angry man-child, okay? Make it useful. Because anybody who says the development team doesn't receive, review, and act on that feedback has simply not been paying attention to how World of Warships has been developed these last few years, right? There have been a lot of changes made to the game based almost exclusively on player feedback, going all the way back to the great Japanese torpedo nerfs, I think back in 2016, because so many people complained about torpedo soup, right? We've gotten all kinds of quality of life and UI improvements and such directly because the players have requested them. The development team is not stupid. Happy players continue to play the game and spend money. That doesn't mean that every piece of feedback is going to get acted upon, because these guys have to make decisions for the overall health and longevity of their product. And sometimes that means pushing players out of their comfort zone. See also the latest patch. But don't think they aren't listening, because I know better, and if you've been paying attention, so do you. All right, let's see what else. What else is going on? Yes, we had a great turnout for Wargames 4 last weekend. 15 teams competed for the title. It was taken by 007, Double Strike. They went home with top honors, so congrats to them. It was a fun event to cast. And you can find some of the games around the channel here if you're interested. Thanks to all the teams that came out and played. It was a great time. King of the Sea 8 signups will open here on Monday. Open here on North America on Monday, 18th February. So stay frosty and get your teams together. There's a new article out about the changes to radar and flooding that are currently being tested on PTS 0.8.1 over this coming weekend. I find the flooding changes kind of interesting, and I think they're going to be some benefit, especially in the face of our new carrier overlords and the endless wave of torpedo bombers, right? I think the radar changes are largely a waste of time. Radar right now is a consumable that most players don't have any warning you're about to use in randoms, so for many of them, it's going to take them that 6-second gap they're building into the front of a radar activation before anybody else can use it, well, that's how long it's going to take them to get their guns turned anyway, right? Between the additional duration at the end and the fact they're losing time up front, in the end, I don't think it's going to make a significant difference here. For competitive play, I have a different opinion. I think it will change some things. We'll have to see how that plays out because you've got the voice communication, the ability to say, okay, guys, I'm going to activate my radar in 10 seconds or whatever. So people can pre-train their guns and be ready for the shot when it comes. I will say the visual animations for icons and radar for hydro and everything are a godsend. I'm so glad they're doing this. They're long overdue. As a caster, as a player, dear God, it will be fantastic to know what ship is using what particular spotting consumable and when and for how long. And it's just going to make things so much easier. So huge kudos to Wargaming for finally getting those into the UI. So let's talk about Wichita. Historically, USS Wichita was a one-off heavy cruiser that the U.S. Navy built in the mid-1930s because, well, the London Naval Treaty of 1930 let them get away with it. So they experimented by putting heavy cruiser guns on a light cruiser hull. In this case, the hull of a Brooklyn-class light cruiser. That particular class is represented in-game by Tier 7 premium American cruiser Boise. So if you own a Boise, or even a Nueve de Julio, and are familiar with how that ship handles, driving a Wichita will feel very comfortable. Now, the most immediate comparison you can make to an existing ship is to, of course, Tier 8 American tech tree cruiser Baltimore. And indeed, if you enjoy playing Baltimore, you'll probably enjoy playing Wichita. They have a pretty similar style of play. But there are some key differences between the ships that you should know about before you just decide to invest money in a Wichita. First off, these are the same guns as Baltimore, but they are not the same shells. Baltimore was constructed with the hoists in her barbettes and magazines to handle the U.S. Navy's super heavy shells. Wichita was not. So these are the same 203mm shells fired by Tier 7 tech tree cruiser New Orleans. They have the same special American auto bounce and ricochet angles that you're used to if you've played through the line, but they deal slightly less damage because they are lighter rounds. Subsequently, they have a higher exit velocity out of Wichita's barrels, but they average about 20 to 25mm less of horizontal armor penetration at all ranges. The gap is more pronounced when talking about plunging fire through deck armor at long range, going as high as 35 or 40mm at max range. Secondly, this is also not Baltimore's anti-aircraft suite. Wichita's AA is solid, but it is definitely a step below Baltimore's. Nowhere is this more notable than in Wichita's mid-range aura, where she's only about half as effective as Baltimore in terms of consistent DPS, and about 2/3 as effective in terms of flak. Third, she is more stealthy than Baltimore, coming in with a surface detection of only 9.5 kilometers when fully rigged for stealth. This is about 0.4 kilometers better than Baltimore. Now, that doesn't sound like much, but then you have to factor in her radar range is only 9 kilometers, and every little bit helps when trying to sneak up on destroyers. Additionally, when fully rigged for stealth, her aerial detection is only 6.2 kilometers, and her AA range is 5.8 kilometers. She's one of the very few heavy cruisers in the game presently who get those two numbers that close together after the AA mechanic changes, and it's a bigger deal than you might think. Lastly, Wichita handles completely differently than Baltimore. Not only does she have a higher top speed, she has a smaller turning radius and a much quicker rudder shift. She really retains the handling characteristics of her light cruiser hull. Wichita does not have any gimmicks. She doesn't have a heel, she doesn't have better armor or any of that kind of nonsense. She's just a different Tier 8 American heavy cruiser. So if you enjoy the American all-gun heavy cruisers, I don't think you'll be disappointed. I generally do not enjoy the high-tier American heavy cruisers. I despise New Orleans when I played through her back at Tier 8. I did not care for Baltimore even at Tier 9, and I have a very tenuous relationship with Des Moines. But despite all of that, I do enjoy playing Wichita, and I think some of that is because her stealth combined with her maneuverability means she can be a real troll. She handles so quickly, she's so quick on the rudder, you can dodge a lot of incoming fire. So as this game kind of draws to a close, I want to highlight another non-CC content creator you may or may not have heard of. This time, it's actually a group of them. BIA, brothers in arms here on the NA server. I'll put a link to their YouTube channel down below. It's three guys. It's Puddin', Sneaky Snake, and Elastic Spider. They've been making regular content as a group for quite a while now, and overall, it's really good stuff, guys. They put out consistently entertaining games with fun commentary, so if you're not subscribed, head over and check them out. I'm a little biased here. I was once clanned up with both Sneaky and Spider. I played with Sneaky quite a bit. Sneaky is my co-caster on Wargames 4 last weekend, so I'll admit to some bias here, guys. But also, they put out good stuff. And if you don't like it, you don't have to watch it. But definitely go check them out and see what you think. Dead last here, one last niggling thing before we get off the channel for good. Wargaming has recently announced there's going to be a player get-together aboard USS Texas on Saturday, the 2nd of March. I will be in attendance. I'm going to be there. So if you guys want the chance to come hang out, meet me, shake my hand. If you care about that sort of thing, I'll have some cards. I'll be giving away some CC codes. So I'll be at the event. If you're planning on coming, definitely please come up and say hi, chat with me. Let me know what you think of the channel. Let me know what you think of the content, what I can be doing better. If I suck, tell me that too. I can't get better unless people tell me what I'm doing wrong. But if you're able to make it to USS Texas in a couple of weeks, guys, I do hope you'll come over and say hello. All right, that's it. Hope you enjoyed this week's Scuttlebutt. And as always, we will see you next week. Take care.